This is an instructional video about working in LoFT 2.0. The first thing that you need to do before starting working in LoFT 2.0 is add your SDO account as a new person in Chrome and use that to access the platform. A detailed instruction on how to do this can be found in a different video. After you added the SDO account as a new person, the only thing that you need to do to get a task is to paste the link to the platform in the address bar. You hit enter and your task loads. Unlike in LoFT 1.0, you don't need a task ID to access the task. Instead, a task is automatically loaded for you when you open the platform. As soon as the task loads, you need to park the task. Parking the task can be done by clicking this button here. Remember to always choose the second option when prompted in this window here. You click park and your task is parked. You always need to do this because if you don't and accidentally refresh the page, or if you close the page and open it again, you will be assigned a new task and your progress on the previous task will be lost. In order to access the task you've already parked, you click on the parking lot and you select your task here. After you've successfully parked the task, you can start working. In order to be the most efficient, you should get to know the shortcuts. And the list of shortcuts can be found by clicking on this little keyboard icon here. There is the entire list of shortcuts that are available for you. Next to the list of shortcuts is this little exclamation mark in a circle, which is the link to the user guidelines. You can see that immediately you're prompted with this link for LoFT 2.0 guidelines. You need to read these guidelines in their entirety before starting work on your first task in LoFT 2.0. One very useful thing to do in the platform is to use the Control and minus buttons at the same time to decrease the size of the window, and by that you increase the size of the canvas you can be working in. Another useful thing to do to further increase the size of your canvas is to click this little button here, which maximizes your work area. One of the biggest differences between LoFT 1.0 and LoFT 2.0 is the fact that 2.0, the waveform, is horizontal instead of vertical in LoFT 1.0. That means that navigating through the audio is a little bit different. Moving through the audio is possible in three different ways. You can click on the waveform, and by clicking, you're taken to that exact timestamp in the task. You can see that. And when I click here, the waveform moves and the cursor is placed at the point where I clicked. You can move through the task by sliding this slider here, and it will take you back and forth in the task. And if you're working on a laptop, you can use the gestures on the trackpad to move slightly forward or backwards in the task. That will be all regarding the basics of working in LoFT 2.0. It's very important to remember that all the rules regarding segmentation and transcription apply to LoFT 2.0 just the same as they do to LoFT 1.0. This is an introductory video about working in LoFT 2.0. As you can see, the interface is very different from LoFT 1.0. However, all of the features are here and all of the rules and principles apply just as they did in LoFT 1.0. The biggest difference is the fact that the waveform is horizontal instead of vertical. This implies that there is a different way of moving through the task, and that's what we'll be going through in this video. So basically, there are three ways you can move through the task. You can use the horizontal scroll bar that's located immediately below the waveform, or the horizontal bar that's located below the canvas. You can see that when you move one, the other moves in unison. The other way to navigate through the task is with clicking on the part that you want to move to the blue line. So if you click here on the beginning of this segment and you click play, the audio will play from that point. This is a more precise way of moving through the task. The third way of moving through the task is to use the horizontal scroll. If you use a mouse, it is usually accessed by pressing down on the wheel of the mouse and moving the mouse side to side. Or if you work on a laptop, Based on your settings, you can use the horizontal feature on your trackpad. However, if you use the trackpad, be very careful not to scroll too much, because for some laptops, the horizontal scroll can also move you back and forwards between pages and have the effect of clicking these buttons here. So, in case this poses a problem for you, you can ask for assistance to turn this feature off in your browser. One of the things that is made much easier in LoFT 2.0 compared to LoFT 1.0 is creating a speaker turns. Creating a speaker turn can be done in a couple of different ways. Let's say that we hear the audio
Sziasztok, és nagyon sok szeretettel köszöntök mindenkit.
and we want to create a speaker turn for this part of the speech here. We can use the plus button right above the cursor, and that will give us a new speaker turn that's not attributed to any speaker. The same effect can be achieved by using the Ctrl plus Shift plus A shortcut, and we'll get the same speaker turn created here. Once we attribute that speaker turn to speaker, and let's say that this is set by speaker 2, you can see the color of the speaker turn change. Now we can adjust the boundaries of this segment here. We can do this by clicking and dragging these two little circles at the end of each speaker turn that's selected, and we can do this, and we can do this. Once we've saved speaker turn, you can see that this is the entire speaker turn that we've created. Adjusting the speaker turn boundaries can be done also in the same way that we did it in LoFT 1.0. We can select the speaker turn and use the shortcut Ctrl plus colon to adjust the starting time, or Ctrl plus single quote to adjust the ending time. Now we can readjust the speaker turn to the point where we need it to be. One very useful feature in LoFT 2.0 is the fact that the entire speaker turn can be moved back and forth in the tasks, so adjusting the entire speaker turn is made much easier. The second video regarding speaker labeling will be about named speakers. In case a speaker's name becomes known during the task you work on, the speaker label should reflect that. So, if the speaker introduces themselves, for an example, they say, "Hi, my name is John," or someone else addresses them by that name, the speaker label should be Speaker John. To edit the speaker, you should click on this button here with the three dots and select Edit Speaker. So if, as we said, the speaker is named John, we would now write the name of the speaker here. If their surname also becomes known, it should be added to the label. For an example, Speaker John Smith. The name and surname of the speaker should always be capitalized. This is the first of 4 videos that explains speaker labeling. In general, there are 4 ways in which speakers can be labeled. These are numbered speakers, named speakers, pre-recorded speakers, and unidentifiable speakers. In this video, we'll be talking about numbered speakers. This means that the name of the speaker is not known. This is the most common way of labeling the speakers in a task. The speaker label is speaker and then a number. The number is actually the order in which the speakers appear in the video. So the first speaker would be speaker 1. The second speaker would be speaker 2. Later, when a new person is heard in the task, they would be speaker 3. To add a new speaker, you can simply click this plus button here, and you can see that automatically the second speaker will be named speaker 2. To edit the speaker name, you can click the 3 dots here next to the name and click Edit Speaker here. you can edit the speaker's label, but be careful. The word speaker should be with lowercase letters only. If you write speaker with a first uppercase letter, like this, or maybe like this, with every letter uppercase, this will not be correct. Speaker with all the letters in lowercase is the only correct way of labeling the speakers. So, you should have a speaker, blank space, and a number which signifies the order in which the speakers appear in the task. In this video, we will be talking about three types of annotations: music annotation, the laughter annotation, and the unknown label annotation. We already showed how to use the music annotation in a previous video, but we'll repeat it again. So, whenever there's music heard in the background,
এমনকি পতঙ্গের বিষটাও খায় চীনেরা। তবে আজ আমরা পাঠকদেরকে জানাবো চীনের অদ্ভুত কিছু জনপ্রিয়
the music annotation should be used. Laughter is very self-explanatory. Whenever people laugh, you should use the laughter annotation. Keep in mind that when speakers use the words that represent laughter, these should be transcribed and no annotation should be placed. So, if you hear someone say, for an example, "Ha ha, that's funny," this would be transcribed. But if the person is really laughing, the laughter annotation should be selected. One final annotation is the unknown label annotation. Basically, we don't use this annotation, and in case you're in doubt and want to use it, you must contact your reviewer for approval. This video will explain the annotations used to annotate speech. We have three of these annotations available. They are foreign speech, singing, and unintelligible. The foreign speech annotation is used to annotate whenever a speaker says a word that's not in the language that you transcribe. However, you should know that if that foreign speech is understood by most speakers who speak the language in which the transcription is done, those words shouldn't be labeled as foreign speech, but should be transcribed. One example is if a speaker speaks in English and says adios, meaning goodbye in Spanish. This should be transcribed as most English speakers would recognize this word. This should be adapted to the language you're transcribing and the population speaking the language. The singing annotation is used when someone is singing. Whenever you hear singing in your task, the lyrics of the song that is being sung should be transcribed and the segment should have the singing annotation attached. However, if the singing is done in a foreign language, you should select the foreign speech annotation. The unintelligible annotation is used when you hear speech but you can't understand what the speaker says, even after listening to the segment multiple times. Please keep in mind that the words such as and oh, which are considered interjections or filler words, should not be labeled as unintelligible. Every task in LoFT 2.0 has pre-filled speaker turns. These speaker turns are here for your convenience, but it is your job to check each and every single one of them thoroughly. Pre-filled speaker turns can easily be noticed because they're not solid in color like the one that I've created here earlier, but they have these white stripes all over them. They're also noted with this grayish line at the end of the transcription box and a notice that says the content was pre-filled and needs approval. Right from the start, we can notice that this speaker turn violates at least one rule from the guidelines. It's almost a minute long, and we know that no speaker turn should last for more than 30 seconds. Also, the pre-filled transcription is wrong most of the times. So your job is to adjust this transcription to be the exact thing the speaker says and to follow each and every point in the guidelines. The pre-filled speaker turns do not follow the 0.5 second rules also, so they need to be thoroughly checked for that too. In conclusion, speaker turns are here to make your job easier, but having them there does not mean that the job is done, and you should never just go through the task, save each pre-filled speaker turns, and submit the task. If you do that, the task will be rejected. The fourth and last type of speaker label is the pre-recorded speaker label. This speaker label is used when we hear speech coming from a machine, such as the Google Assistant or Amazon's Alexa, or, for an example, an elevator floor announcement. Also, any recording within the recording, such as the singing in a song played in the background, should be labeled as pre-recorded. A recording within the recording can be when a speaker plays a video of themselves. So, for the purposes of this tutorial, let's say that speaker 1 does an introduction to his video here.
চীনের খাবারের সুনাম বিশ্বজুড়ে।
They next play a video of themselves in which the speaker
আমাদের দেশেও চীনা খাবারের কদর কম নয়।
We would create a new speaker label here and we'll name the speaker pre-recorded speaker 1. We would adjust the segment to fit the speech. Even though it is the same person, we would label it as pre-recorded speaker 1 since this is seen as being a recording within the recording. Just as was the case with the numbered speakers, these speaker labels should contain a number which signifies the order in which the pre-recorded speakers appear in the task. The first pre-recorded will be pre-recorded speaker 1, the second will be pre-recorded speaker 2, etc. Note that these speakers never contain a name. So, even if you hear a song and you maybe know who the singer is, you should not include the name in the speaker label. The third type of speaker label is the unidentifiable speaker. It is used when you can't identify who the speaker is. Common uses of this speaker label are when you hear a crowd cheering or chanting like this. As you can hear, there are hundreds of people singing at the same time and you can't identify any single person. Another possible use of this speaker label is when you hear speech from a single person but you can't be sure of who spoke. In these cases, you can create a new speaker and name the speaker Unidentifiable speaker. In any given task, there can only be one unidentifiable speaker label, and this speaker label does not include numbers. So, putting unidentifiable speaker 1 would be a mistake. Once you save it, remember that all of the speech that comes from an unidentifiable speaker should be attributed to the same unidentifiable speaker label. Remember that for this speaker label too, all of the letters in the speaker label should be in lowercase. One very important rule in the guidelines is this one. No task should have more than 20 speaker labels. When the 21st speaker is introduced in the task, you should end the transcription there. So, if there are many people speaking in one task, and you have created 20 speaker labels for each of them, when you hear the 21st separate person talk, this is where the task should be ended. If the task was originally 3 minutes long, but we hear the 20th speaker, let's say, for an example, in the 2 minutes and 18 seconds mark. And after that, we hear a new person talk. This is where we would end the transcription. You should note that when counting the speaker labels, all kinds of speaker labels are counted towards the 20 speaker limit. This includes pre-recorded speakers and unidentifiable speaker label. So we should only transcribe up to 20 unique speaker labels. This is the second video about measuring 0.5 second pauses and splitting speaker turns. So, when we listen to the audio and we get another pause that we're trying to measure, like this one here,
Picit olyan is volt már nekem az Oli bácsi új videója.
we need to measure it and determine if it's longer than 0.5 seconds. So, to do that, again, we place the cursor at the beginning of speech right after the pause. We move back 0.5 seconds using the left arrow. We press play. And we can see that we cannot hear any of the final parts of this word set here. Let's do that again just to be sure. Position the cursor at the beginning of speech, move back 0.5 seconds, and press play.
Az Oli bácsi.
We've safely concluded that this pause here is longer than 0.5 seconds, and this segment needs to be split. Since there is also a transcription for this segment, the transcription will need to be split also. First, we determine where we would like to split this segment. Let's say that it's here, right after the final word that was said in the first part. But we need to know where the transcription is to be split again. So we
Picit olyan is volt már nekem
take a listen to the audio, determine that this is the part where the transcription needs to be split, and this is the part where the audio needs to be split. Be very careful when splitting the speaker turns, because if you split the speaker turn here, that means that this blank space will be left in front of the transcription in the next segment that's created. So later we'll have to take care of that. Now, we've positioned the cursor here, and we use the split function. You can see that we get two segments, and all that's left is to adjust the boundaries of this segment and take care of this blank space that was left here. Save, and we've safely avoided having a pause in speaker turns that's longer than 0.5 seconds. A few things you need to know about the split function is that you must have the segment saved first. As you can see here, if we go to this segment, which is a pre-filled speaker turn, you cannot split the segment without saving it. So you need to save it, and the split button becomes available. If you hover your mouse over the split button, it will tell you to place the audio cursor and the text caret at the split point, then click this button to split the segment. You also can't split the segment immediately after applying any changes to the transcription or to the length of the speaker turn. You can see that the split button is grayed out, and it says that save is required to split the segment. Once you save it, you can adjust the cursors and you can split the segment. That will be all regarding the 0.5 second pauses and splitting the turns. In summary, you should measure every pause that is not obviously longer or shorter than 0.5 seconds. Use the shortcuts to move 0.5 seconds backwards and forwards in the task, and you should never leave extra blank spaces when using the split function. One very specific rule that's immensely important in this project is annotating PII. PII stands for Personally Identifiable Information. Whenever we hear any kind of PII, we should label that part of the speech with the PII annotation. The guidelines contain a list of everything that's considered PII But most often, we encounter PII when speakers say their names. For an example, if the speaker says at this point, "Hello, my name is John Smith," we will transcribe the "Hello, my name is" part, and for the part where the speaker says their name, we should select the PII annotation. Some kinds of names, though, shouldn't be marked as PII, and these are names of internationally famous people or celebrities such as Tom Hanks, Taylor Swift, Michael Jordan, etc. Also, fictional characters such as Sherlock Holmes or Harry Potter, for example, shouldn't be labeled as PII. In this video, we will be discussing the 30-second rule. It is a very simple rule that we need to follow at all times. The rule says that no speaker turn should last for more than 30 seconds. In case a speaker talks for a long time without making a break that's longer than 0.5 seconds, we need to end the speaker turn at the 30-second mark and then start a new speaker turn immediately after that. For the purposes of this video, we will assume that this speaker talks without making any pause, and we'll see that the speaker turn starts at around the 3rd second and lasts until around the 33rd second, slightly before that. To be able to annotate the speech properly, we should start the new segment immediately after this segment is ended. So this speaker turn will be attributed to speaker 1, and we'll adjust speaker turn for as long as it's needed and type the transcription. We should always be careful not to cut off any words. In case a word is said right at the 30-second mark, the best practice is to find the last full word said before the 30-second mark and end the segment there. The segment can be a second or two shorter than 30 seconds, and as you can see here, this segment lasts for about 29.5 seconds. But the segment should never be longer than 30 seconds and not even for a single millisecond. Please remember that this rule applies only to speaker turns and not to annotations. Noise, music, DTMF, and other annotations can last for longer than 30 seconds as long as the sound that's being annotated is present. In this video, we will be talking about the noise annotation. Noise is a label used for all kinds of miscellaneous noise events. This means that if you hear a car passing by, knocking on wood, birds chirping, or literally any other sound that does not fall under any of the other categories, it should be labeled as noise. It is very important to know that all simultaneous noises should be labeled with only one noise annotation. So if you hear two kinds of background noises happening at the same time, they both would fall under one noise annotation. There is no need to create two separate noise annotations that overlap. If you do this, it would be incorrect. The noise annotation is also used to annotate the white noise present in some tasks. If you hear a static noise, sometimes called a white noise, that sounds something like this, that should be also be annotated with this annotation. Keep in mind that the noise annotation, as well as any other annotations, should follow the 0.5 second rule. So that means that if there are two different noises that are less than 0.5 seconds apart, they should be covered with one noise annotation. If between the two noises there is a silence that lasts for longer than 0.5 seconds, you should create two separate noise annotations. This video is dealing with blank space errors. This is a very common mistake and it should be avoided at all costs. Having extra blank spaces in front of the transcription between words or after the transcription is considered a mistake. It happens often, especially after the transcription, as sometimes it's a force of habit to leave a blank space after punctuation or after writing a full word. However, as said before, if that blank space is the final character in the transcription, it will be seen as a mistake. You should always be on the lookout for these blank spaces as they're very easy to miss.